Hey, how's it going, everybody? What is going on? Happy Wednesday to everybody. Hope that you're well today. Excited to be with you for office hours. Office hours, if you're not aware, maybe you're just sort of popping in. Office hours is where I jump online every Wednesday from 2 p.m. to about 2:30, and I'll answer 3 questions about youth ministry. So if you are joining me live, you're welcome to ask questions in the chat. And if you are watching this later, well, you're always welcome to leave a question down in the comments. And so if you are joining me, like I said, for the very first time, you're not a subscriber yet, well, go ahead and click the subscribe button and you'll get videos like this in your inbox on a regular basis. So, yeah, I'm ready to go. We got some good questions today. And I am, tonight, been working on tonight's messages. And my messages for this month, I'm doing a series called Bringing Back the Dead, which is about martyrs, and it deals with All Saints Day, which is coming up. It's October 31st, November 1st, and so it deals with talking about the saints that have gone before, and so I felt like that was a really good topic. I think it's topical because you're bringing back the dead, so that kind of fits the thematics of October, but it's also a good topic in general, just because so many, people today don't understand the sacrifices made early on. I mean, we talk about the death of Jesus, but we don't talk about the countless hundreds, thousands of deaths of those who confess Christ. And that's what I'm going to be going over with my students, because I feel like that's just an important dynamic to the faith. And so we'll be going over that. But yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into question number one. Question number one, by the way, and if you don't know, once again, if you're just joining, my name is Paul Turner from the discipleproject.net, and you can find all kinds of great resources over on my website. You can find, curriculum. You can find over 1,200 blog posts. You can get to my podcast from there. All kinds of things you can find over there at the discipleproject.net. And of course, if you're looking for things to purchase, well, you can always go to gumroad.com/youthmenresources. All those links will be down in the doobly-doo down there. So be sure to check those out. Now, question number one is brought to you by 31 Halloween Would You Rather questions. And I'm having a lot of fun with this. If you don't follow me on social, I've been posting them to Instagram and TikTok. And for both of those, I believe you can get to Instagram is at the D Project, and the TikTok is, I want to say the Disciple Project, or you can just search for my name, I think. And I've been posting these. I'm getting fair engagement, but that's the goal, is just to do this for the next 31 days. And so I've been doing it both on Instagram and TikTok, and doing a poll. So you get them in both. If you get it's only $1.99. So if you get it, there'll be a link down below, by the way, too. You're going to get it in TikTok format, which is also Instagram stories. And you're also going to get these squares. So you can always just post it that way if you want to. But you have that. And then you also I've also put in there, which is Scarier. And which is Scarier could be things like, I asked, which is scarier, being in the flood, on Noah's Ark for 40 days during the flood, or being in Sodom and Gomorrah when sulfur fell from the sky. And somebody said, I'll take Sodom and Gomorrah, because at least I would have been able to have some fun before it ended. I was like, yep. Those are the kind of people I'm looking to reach right there. Those are the people who have that perspective. Like, okay, buddy. Well, at least I brought it to your memory, I guess, if nothing else. So those two things there are available. $1.99. You can use them throughout the week, and like I said, they're already done for you. They come with slides as well. So if you want to use them in your actual youth meeting, put some slides up there. I picked like the 10 really good ones and put them up there. So you're welcome to check that out as well. And those links will be down below. Question number one. How do you comfortable? Oh, I can't do that. I don't know how that happened. How do you get comfortable I won't stand for it. How do you get comfortable with sharing the messages that you don't have to look at the notes the whole time? You don't have to look at your notes the whole time. Good. That makes proper English, and I believe in proper English. I hate making errors like that. So, yes. So question number 2, how do you get comfortable enough with sharing the messages that you don't have to look at your notes the whole time? I just think that has to do with study and meditation, meditating on the word. Now, that's not necessarily to memorize the scriptures, although that's good. Nothing wrong with that. I mostly speak off of slides because I have internalized the message so much that the piece of paper in front of me, unless it has something very specific on it that I really want to say, that I want to get right, I don't really look at the piece of paper in front of me. I'm looking at the notes because I've studied over and over. I already know what's in my heart. What's on the page is fine, but it's going to be what's in my heart, what I'm going to want to say about these verses and what I'm going to say about, and I recommend, look, make yourself some notes. You can do index cards, you can do, write it out. But the problem with writing it out is that you get really wordy and then you feel like you're stuck and you feel like you have to, you feel like you're just committed to the notes, that the only thing you can say is what's on the notes. And so for me, I have my slides are my index cards. They're just there to remind me of what I've already studied, what I've already meditated upon, what I want to say to these students, what my ending is going to be. I've already kind of thought that through. And so in doing that, that makes, once again, time is another one, right? So just time, just doing it over and over again to where you don't need the notes. If it's in your heart, you don't need the notes. The slides will prompt and you'll say, okay, you put on your slides whatever it is you really want to do, the quotes or whatever it is you want to do, and then you don't have to be tied to the notes. You can just go with the slides and go, one after another and go from there, because you already know where you're going to go with this. You already know because you've thought about it, you've studied it, you've meditated upon it. You're thinking about what is the clear-cut message that I want to get across to my students. And then everything that has nothing to do with what you're trying to get across, if it's just, added words, if it's just fluff, cross it out. Just cross it out and say, okay, but Paul, won't that make my message shorter? Yes, and your students will thank you for it. And I always say, too, that you can also put questions in, because I like to engage with my students, so I will ask questions. And of course, this may depend on size of your group and things like that. But for me, I have a smaller group, so I enjoy engaging with them and making them think a little bit about what it is I'm asking of them. It's easy just to have a message, because now you're like, oh boy, that was over. I'm glad I'm done. But it has there's no connection to the audience. It's just, did I do a good job? And I'm not really interested if I did a good job. I was like that when I was younger, because I have to say, well, how did I do? How did I do? I don't ask that question anymore, because I know I've prepared. I know I've done what I'm supposed to do. And now I'm just seeking engagement. I'm seeking to get with students and talk with students about what it is I'm talking about in real time and get their feedback to where they can articulate the truth back to me. That's that's the key in learning. Can you say what I'm saying in your own terms, in your own words, in your own vernacular? Can you then repeat that back to me, not in a parroting sense as if you can say what I say? Of course you can. But can you deliver it to me where you have a greater understanding of what I'm asking? So how do you get comfortable enough with sharing the messages that you don't have to look at your notes the whole time? The answer is study, meditate, make slides, just prompts, or write it out, whichever you choose, but then cross off all the fluff, and then just practice. Just time. That's really all you can do is do it over and over and over again until you get there. And if you do it for any amount of time, you'll eventually get there. You go, oh, okay, got it. So I hope that answers your question. I hope I hope that's helpful to somebody who is trying to, not be married to their notes. because, I know some people feel like they need to, walk around or, things like that. Once again, you'll get comfortable with yourself. And once again, there's no right way or wrong way per se to deliver the message. It's going to be what's in your heart. But you don't want to do anything that's distracting. Sometimes walking around can be a distraction. Sometimes your notes can be a distraction. I don't know how many times I've dropped my notes and it became a distraction to the students because they're like, oh, Paul dropped his notes. Oh, no. Then I'm picking them up and all that stuff. So slides for me, they work. And then if I have a little scrap of paper with some other little note on it, that's fine. But I don't do pages of notes anymore because I've just gotten to the place where I can already know what I want to say in my heart, and I know how I want to deliver it, and I know what I want to say, and that just comes from practice. So, all right, so let's move on to question number 2. Once again, if you're just joining me, thank you for being here today. Appreciate you being a part today. I am Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net. If you're just joining me, you can always check out. There's the website right there, and lots of great resources there. And I try every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, to answer questions for you and answer questions for youth pastors. Usually try to cover around 3. If you have a question, you're live with me now, go ahead. You can drop it in the chat there in the comments. I'll be happy to help you with whatever questions you may have. And if you're watching this later on and you want me to answer one of your questions, well, go ahead and just leave me a comment down below and I will get to that for the next week. All right, question number 2. Question number 2 is brought to you by the Youth Pastor's Guide to Creating a Code of Conduct. Say, Paul, that's interesting. Why do you have this resource? You know what? I hear a lot of people talking about behavior problems. And currently, and praise the Lord, I don't have a lot of behavior problems. I don't have a lot of behavior problems. And that's great because I don't like dealing with behavior problems. They're not fun. But discipline is always an opportunity for discipleship. If a kid's misbehaving, whether they're at camp or youth group or somewhere else, I see it as an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity to speak into a young person's life to help them, if I can, if they're open to it, if they're open to teaching, if they're open to correction. If they're not, well, then I'll wait. It's fine. I like to think I'm a little more patient now than I used to be. But this here, the Youth Pastor's Guide to Create a Code of Conduct, is because I hear so much talk about how people can't get kids to settle down. You're the leader, you're the leader. So you have to then figure out then how to present the mission of the church. And the mission, and by the way, you are the church. You say, Paul, well, just a youth group. No, you're not. You're the church. You're just because you're not adults doesn't mean you're not the church. And I think the mindset has to be that we're the church. And because we're the church, we're trying to get something done here. We're trying to make disciples. Well, you can't really make disciples too much if there's nothing but chaos going on and absolute disruption. So this has to do with our question today, by the way. And so if you would like this, the Youth Pastor's Guide to Create a Code of Conduct, it's something you can do. You should do with your core leaders, parents, and your pastor, or your leadership team, your volunteers, because it impacts everybody. Because if all you have is disruption, it's hard to get things done. But that comes from mindset too. My mindset is I am here to make disciples. And if anybody in this room, first of all, doesn't want to be a disciple, there's someplace else for you to go. You can go home. If you want to, and you just need a little help, and you don't understand, you're a student and you don't understand what the church is, then I want to help you understand. So I don't think that I am like, I'm just like, okay, you're misbehaving, get out. Time, context. What are these students facing? It's process, right? So if you're interested in this, I'll put a link down below. You can get it for free just by joining my newsletter, the Youth Ministry Roundup, and I will have it for you. And it's something that you work through to decide what your values are. What are we going to hold people accountable to? What's the bigger vision? You're working on this together with all the folks that you need to work with this for. Which then, like I said, brings me to question number 2. Question number 2 is, what do I do about disruptive kids who do not buy into the program? Well, then this program is not for them. It is, and it isn't. Because the ones that are showing up to be strictly disruptive, they do not know Christ. They are disruptive in the sense that says nobody's going to discipline these kids. Their parents don't want to be part of the process, or whatever it may be. Maybe these students are not a part of your church, but they're from the outside. You say, Paul, but they need this. They need youth group. Here's the problem. And once again, this is nothing I haven't dealt with. I've had kids that I have tolerated to the point where I lost leaders. I lost students. I lost people because I put up with too many shenanigans, or I asked for more grace, or whatever it is, but I wound up losing people who were supporting me because I constantly doubled, tripled down on students who I thought should be there when I really should have just said, yeah, I probably need to stop this. I probably need to this probably needs to happen. So what if you have disruptive teens? Let me break down just a little bit of the process I think you can go through. Something I did I was a day camp director. And as a day camp director, I always got calls, from the day, or I'd have to make calls about somebody's kids. And I'd say, look, you got to come pick them up because they are disrupting everything. They don't want to go to the activities. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. Then we send them home. Okay. Or I should say this. I didn't send them home. I called to build a track record. So every conversation I had with a parent went into a folder. I made a file, and I documented everything. I documented the kid's behavior. I wrote up a slip and said, this is how this child behaved. I talked with the parent about it. Said, hey, mom, dad, just want to let you know, hey, listen, hey, so-and-so's having a hard time today. Did they eat breakfast? Did they have a good night? Did they sleep well? I'm checking in on them for a couple of reasons. One, I'm making sure that parents know that their child was not well behaved today. And two, I'm trying to find out if there's a reason behind that. Is there some reason why they're misbehaving the way they are? And so that by the end, after 2 or 3 times, after the third time, that week or whatever it may be, then those students got time off. I just said, hey, you know what? It's probably best if they just stay home next week. If they miss it, great, have them come back. If they don't, well, then, you have other options maybe that your student would like or enjoy more than being here at camp. Camp wasn't everybody's jam. They didn't like camp as much as the next kid. So they wound up, just being intolerable because they just did not want to be there for whatever reason. There was another thing I've done with students in a similar fashion is that I would talk with parents. I would work very closely with parents to help students stay in youth group. And so I would do something where I'd say, hey, take the next 3 Wednesdays off. If you miss it, come back. If you don't miss it, then clearly you need another youth group. And you say, Paul, can you do that? Yes, you can do that. I did that, and it was very effective because I was committed to the student to the point where I was willing to lose them. I wanted to connect with parents and help the parents with their children as well. That's family ministry. Discipline is part of family ministry. It's part of working together with the parents who may themselves have no answer for this student, their child. And you may be able to help if your program is something worth coming to and they would miss it if they were not there. Clearly, if they are disruptive or whatever, they may not like the program. They may looking to get kicked out. Who knows? But what I do know is that if you have disruptive kids, it's going to long term, if you just ignore it or hope it's going to get better and don't engage with parents or your pastor or people like that, then it's only bound to get worse. It's only bound to turn on you. So number 1, I would say, is document everything. Number 2, you want to create a standards of behavior, code of conduct, so that if they do break something, I don't mean like a wall or a chair, although that may happen, but if you have very clear things that says, listen, over time, if this student is constantly doing this, if their behavior, if they're breaking our code of conduct or something that is being totally disruptive to where we cannot accomplish what we want to accomplish, which is true of anything. I don't know why the church is any different than other programs. Kids can get kicked out of football. Kids can get kicked out of band. Kids can get kicked out of their school. But we can't kick kids out of church because, well, they need church. Well, they need Jesus is what they need. And partly they need Jesus because they get to Jesus through discipline. That they understand that there's there's cost involved in that you just don't get to do whatever you want, even at church. In fact, church should have a high standard, just like everybody else has, and maybe the highest standard. But we, just like teachers don't want to lose kids out of the school, but if they're making a mess in the classroom and other kids can't learn, that's a problem. If you have one kid on your football team constantly running plays and doing whatever they want to do or being disruptive or any of those things, then guess what? That takes away from the mission of the team. And so if a student is being disruptive in your youth group and is causing chaos, work the process, whatever that process is for you. First of all, the process is document everything. Make sure you have a code of conduct, because if they don't know they're breaking something, if they don't know that there's a code, if this is not posted on the wall or is announced to parents, then guess what? They don't know that you have rules. They think just church is a free zone to just behave any way you want to behave, and that's just not true. So document everything, create a standard using the code of conduct. Make sure you and your leadership are on the same page concerning the standards and practices and disciplinary actions you're going to take. So you do have to come up with disciplinary actions. If they do this, then that happens. If this happens, that gets a phone call. If this happens twice, then they get time off. If this happens again, this is probably not the right youth program for them. Okay? And that's over time. That's not just get out. That's over time of trying to discipline them, disciple them, find out if they have a relationship with Jesus, work with the parents who may or may not have a relationship with Jesus. They may not even come to your church, but it may be an opportunity. And so you then have to be in sync with your leadership, because if your leaders are not in sync and you discipline a kid and they're not okay with it, then you're out of luck. You're fighting a lone battle there. So you have to be able to say, that we are in agreement that if this happens, then this must happen. There must be some sort of cause and effect. And it doesn't matter, by the way, whether that child's been there 10 years or 2 minutes, that across the board, in fairness to everybody, that you have to be able to say, this is our standards for our youth ministry. Because we're trying to accomplish one of the greatest things that anybody's trying to accomplish, which is lead people to be lifetime followers of Jesus. And if we don't have the wherewithal or the guts or the backbone or whatever you may call it to say, hey, we need to have discipline, then, and I'm not talking about tyranny, I'm talking about discipline. Don't confuse it. Just because this is over time, this is about process. It's not about just throwing kids out the door, okay? But you got to be in sync with your leadership, and they have to be in sync with you. And this will lead to question number 3 later on, by the way. But you have to be in agreement. You have to be in agreement of the consequences that are going to happen, okay? Number 4, parents' meetings. To make sure everyone is informed, and once again, informed, not in agreement. Because there'll be some people who may not agree with it. Okay. There's always going to be people that are not in agreement with what the standards are that you set. But this is about information. We're letting you know, parents, this is the standard we have. And we need to let you know that. Because if you just think that little Johnny can come to, or little Susie can come to youth group and just act any way they want, well, that is incorrect. Because the goal we have here is to make disciples. And if that's not happening, then guess what? We've got to do something about that. Otherwise, we lose our mission, our goal. The whole thing is of no regard. And so we have to have those in there. Once again, practicing over time, working with individual kids, working with their situations. Are they in the church or out of the church? Are their parents saved or not saved? We're talking about a comprehensiveness that you look at, okay? And the last thing you have to do is, first is you have to document everything, keep people informed, make sure you have documentation, whether that's something that's broken, you take a picture of it, or whether that's you got cameras in your room. I'm not real big on, being Big Brother or anything like that, but if you have to, if that's the dilemma, if that's the situation you're in, then do what you got to do, I guess. But, document everything. Make sure it's at least written down, time, date, all those things. create a standard of behavior, code of conduct, which once again, link down below if you want to have the process for doing that. Number 3, make sure you and your leadership are on the same page as to what the standards are, and then what are the disciplinary actions that will happen afterwards, and everybody's in agreement over that. Number 4, parents, make sure parents are informed. Have a parents meeting and say, hey, parents, this is what we're doing. Now, this may be for your in-house people who need to know. And if it's for your parents who don't come to church, I would have something that you can hand them and say, hey, so-and-so, we just want to let you know that these are our standards and our procedures, because our mission is so big, because we want to make disciples of Jesus, and we want your son or daughter to be there. We have to let you know that if they do not act in accordance with the standards that we have as a youth ministry, then I'm afraid they're not going to be able to attend. And once again, that is an opportunity to minister to those parents, and an opportunity to minister to those kids, and an opportunity to see how things work out and see how things happen, right? Because I think that's important. And then the last thing you do is number 5 is enforce the rules. If you've gone through all this problem, if you've gone through all this trouble of creating a standard, having meetings, securing and locking down the standards, practices, and the disciplinary actions that are taken for certain things, if you're going to go through that whole process, then you have to execute on that and say, okay, we're going to enforce the rules. Doesn't mean once again, it's not like, oh, you broke a rule and you're out. You work the process. Talk to the parent, talk to the kid, warn the kid, talk to the parent. Parents, just here's the code of conduct, just want to let you know. Hey, listen, just want to let you know, so-and-so did that again. How can we make this better? How can we work together? I want so-and-so to stay. I want them to be a part of this, but I can't let them stay if it's constant disruption. And then finally, hey, listen, I'm sorry. I know we've tried to work this out. We've tried to do this, but I'm afraid that your son or daughter simply will not be allowed to attend anymore. I'm very sorry about that. If things change, please let me know. Let them have some time off. Let them stay out for a month and say, hey, if they miss it, then maybe that will cause them to reflect on their behavior, and they will change. And if they do, great. Would love to have them back. If it does not, well, then we'll just go back to square one. But you give them time off, and then finally, you need to find another program that's going to be best suited for your child's needs, because it's causing disruption, and it's causing us to spend a lot of time, energy, and so forth on a particular situation when there's 20 other kids in the room that need my attention. It's nothing that teachers don't go through. It's nothing that coaches don't go through. It's nothing that any other institution goes through. We're the church, and we should be as diligent as possible to keep kids. Not diligent to get rid of them, diligent to keep them as best we can, but you have to have a process that you go through to do that. All right, so that is question number 2. And of course, you're always welcome to leave your comments down below. If you disagree with me, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just telling you what's worked for me, what has been our standards, and I feel like they've been pretty good. As long as you're honest about it, as long as you've informed people about it, as long as you have worked a process to help a kid stay, not to get rid of a kid, but to help them stay, and you've done everything to what you have set out to do, then I think you can say, that's okay. I've done everything I know to do, and there won't be any regret, and there won't be any, I could have done more, because you're working through the process that you have. All right. Question number 3. Question number 3, everybody. And question number 3, like I said, if you're just jumping in right now, first, welcome. Thank you for being here. Let me know where you're from. If you're a youth pastor that's watching, feel free to comment and say, tell me where you're viewing from. And just let me know what you got going on, how many students you have, things like that. And then also, if you are brand new here, like I said, my name is Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net. You can always visit the website. Lots of stuff there. You can sign up for newsletters. You can get to videos, get to my podcast, all the things, and you can go there and visit there. And then today, question number 3 is brought to you by Youth Ministry Coaching. And I love coaching youth workers. I love talking to youth workers about their program because I believe there's so many youth workers that are under the gun. They are under the gun on various things. They're trying to just do this thing by themselves. They feel like they're all by themselves. They feel like they're all alone. And I'm like, listen, let's get together. Let's talk about this. Let's keep you in the ministry as long as you want to be in the ministry. Don't just give up because you feel like nobody's helping you. I'm here to help you. In fact, I have right now, I believe, I'm going to put a link down below later, I think, but there's for this coaching, I offered it in my newsletter, and I'm going to give it to you guys, 20% off if you get the 3 months. If you get the 3-month coaching program, 20% off. And I'll put all that information down below, but why not? Why not? If you've never tried coaching, try it. It might actually help. And is it worth, you say, Paul, is it worth the price? I would say it is. Because when you know that you're going to meet twice a month with somebody for accountability, for instruction, for for help, for prayer, for encouragement, that's worth everything. That's worth everything. If you're by yourself, if you're trying to do this thing by yourself, you don't feel like you have a good team, you feel like you're drowning, you feel like you're just in over your head, you're asking all these questions and not getting a lot of answers, you're having to search the internet for Googling questions. That's fine. If that's your route, that's okay. You can do that. Or you could talk with a real human being who's been doing this for quite some time, who's interested in your success and interested in helping you build a successful youth ministry. That's what I'm about. That's what I want to help you do, if I can do it. If you watched any of my videos, you clearly know that I'm for you, and I want to help you. But you also got to want to help yourself. You also got to be willing to say, you know what? It's time to pull the trigger on that coaching thing. It's time to say, look, I've tried all the cheap ways. I've tried all the curriculum ideas. I've tried games. I've tried a bunch of things. And now I just need to get things in my heart correct. I need to have that person in my corner that I meet with twice a month that says they care about me and they care about my success. Because some of you might be working for people who do not care about your success. In fact, you're maybe around people who are working against your success. And I want to help you work with that. I want to help you deal with that, as I have done with youth workers in the past. So anyway, if you are interested in that, check it out. If you check out, and I'm trying to, I wish I could remember the code. Where's the code? I'll put the code. Well, hold on. Let me just go ahead. Hold on just a second. It'll take me a second to do this. Okay. Hang on. I'm just going to find you the code right now. So just everybody relax. It's okay. I'm going to get it for you. Okay. Let me just get the note. It's in my, let's see. It's in my latest newsletter here. So I want to make sure I get it correctly. And let's see. The code is going to be 20% off. It's worth the time to be able to say, hey, let's see. It is Pastor's Appreciation Month, by the way. 20% off. And it's just, your code is Coach Me. Coach Me. Okay. That is your code. So if you want 20% off, you can go to the website. You can go to it. I'll put the link down below. But if you want to go there now, you can go to gumroad.com/youthmenresources. Go to coaching, and then you can get your 20% off for the 3 months. Okay. All right. So I hope that somebody that watches this will really dive into that and say, you know what, it's time to spend a little money if I have to in the short term so I can get things right. You may never need coaching again. You may just say, hey, I need 3 months. We're going to establish some foundational things. And then maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, you say, well, maybe I need coaching then. But at least you will have tried it at least once. Okay. That's all I can say. If you haven't tried it before, try it. And if you don't like it, well, then you don't like it. That's just how it goes. Question number 3 now. Question number 3. Question number 3 is, what if my pastor doesn't back me up? I've seen this quite a bit, where you're a youth pastor and you are doing your dead level best to get things done. You're trying to do ministry. You're trying to do those things. And it just seems like at every turn, your pastor is not helping you. In fact, they're and once again, I want to be very careful because these are, I want to say they're isolated. I want to say they're frequent, at least what I hear, and having been in that position as well. Because there's going to be times when you're doing things like the Code of Conduct, by the way, we talked about, when you're dealing with disciplinary issues, when you're dealing with those type of things. You know, when you're trying to gain a handle on this youth ministry and there seems to be conflict between you and the pastor on what should be done, it is time for a conversation. It's not going to get better if you don't have the conversation. Because at some point, you know, you can't work anywhere where somebody's always undoing what you're trying to do. It's just, it's like you trying to tie your shoelace and somebody comes along and just keeps untying it. That's no fun. Not only is it no fun, it's exhausting. And so when you're working with a pastor who does not back you up, and I'm not talking about backing up your foolishness, by the way. Let me just make sure I'm clear about that. I'm not talking about backing you up when you have done something so dumb or so stupid that you cannot be backed up. It's just not going to happen. But I'm talking about doing real ministry. I'm talking about trying to help kids, running program. You have good intentions, bad practices maybe. You've done, you know, those type of things where you're in the process of learning something, especially if you're young. And, you know, those type of things where a pastor, and pastors, if any pastors are watching this, can I encourage you? Back your youth pastor. If you want to give a gift for pastor appreciation, back your youth pastor up. Make a commitment. This is, look, as long as you don't do anything immoral or illegal, I'm going to help you. I'm going to walk with you and help disciple you, but you have to be teachable. There are probably pastors who tried to help me, but I wasn't very teachable. I had a mind of my own in some cases. And in some cases, they didn't care. There were some pastors who just did not care. That's just honest truth. They would rather work against me and save their own skin to some degree and, you know, make themselves look better at my expense. Or they'd say, look, that's just the facts. So what happens if you have a pastor that doesn't back you up? Well, the choices are have the conversation. Say, hey, I need to know, are we on the same page? Are we trying to work together here? Are we trying to accomplish the same thing? Are we on the same page? And if you're not, then the question is, how do we get on the same page? How do we get there? That's a hard conversation because it usually involves talking about things that are hard and decisions have to be made. That's the first step because you can't just let it go on. You can't just live in constant friction because nothing's getting done. Disciples are not getting made. The kingdom is not being built. Things are being done and undone. And there's an insecurity, especially on the part of the youth pastor. Now, the pastor, probably fairly secure. It's the youth pastor that 90% of the time is insecure because they have no recourse because most churches don't have an HR. So I think you have to have hard conversations at that point. You because it's no good for you. It's no bueno for you if you're constantly living in fear that whatever the work you're trying to do is you're going to get barked at because you're not in line. And once again, it has to be because you're either young, foolish, ignorant of what's being expected of you. If you're doing things in spite of it, then you're not going to you should not be backed up. Okay? You just shouldn't. If you're doing things that are just dumb, you're not going to get backed up. It's just foolishness. But if you are trying to learn, if you are trying to do your dead level best and you are in with what your pastor's trying to do, and they won't back you up, that's a different thing. So my advice is have the conversation. Be sure to talk with your pastor or whoever you need to talk to and see if you can't get on the same page. See if you can't salvage it. At the end of the day, though, you have to make a hard decision because it involves family and things of that nature where you say, well, listen, then I can't work here. I can't work at a place where I'm insecure or I don't have security or I don't feel like the person behind me is helping me, but they're working against me in some fashion. I can't work in a place like that, especially the church. I'm not going to work in a place that where the expectation is I need help and I'm just not getting the help I need to accomplish, I think, the things that I've been hired to do. And ultimately, then you have to look for another job. I do not recommend just quitting. I recommend you have to plan that out. You can't just, walk off into the sunset. Usually, if you're married, your wives usually don't like that. So don't do that. So that is my encouragement for you, is be sure to have the conversation, see if you can't get on the same page, find out what do you have to do. Come in a spirit of humility. How can I fulfill what you're asking me to do? How can I do that? And then talk about the nitty gritty. If this, then that. Talk about specific situations. Talk about the things that you really want to talk about. It's worth the conversation. If you love your job, if you care about your job, then it's worth having the conversation. If you don't, if you're just miserable, then, write a letter, I guess, and just say, hey, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. Thanks for allowing me to be a part. But I don't feel like I'm fulfilling what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And here are my reasons why. Right? So it leaves you with very little room to do anything else if the conversation can't be had, if the conversation doesn't want to be had, then you are left with very little choice. So, but anyway, that is my answer to that question. Those are the 3 questions of the day. I hope that you enjoyed listening. Thank you guys so much for being a part today. If you have any last minute questions, now is the time to ask them, because I got to get out of here and I got to work a little bit more. Not much. I can work a little bit more on my message for tonight. I have all the things ready. My slides are ready. I have to work on just a little bit more. Just a little. It needs a little kiss. It needs a little something. Don't know what that is yet, but hopefully the Spirit will provide that. But thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you being a part. If you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to go and click the subscribe button and the thumbs up button, by the way. That lets me know you like the video and you want more of them. And if you have questions for next week, well, leave them down below and I'll see them and hopefully respond in kind. I'll go ahead and I'll answer your question for the following week. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for being a part. Appreciate you hanging out with me for just a little while today. And be sure to visit thediscipleproject.net for resources and other things. And shortly after I get off the video, all the links to all the resources I just talked about today will be down there. So that's it for today, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Talk to you guys later. Have a good day, everybody. Have a good youth meeting.